All right, welcome back to episode 11 of the YMAO Podcast. I'm Joemer. If you're new here, I yap for as long as I can, so you either fall asleep or you learn something new, and hopefully you learn something new. So I usually just start off with talking about my day, and my day has been good. It was productive for a Friday. Sometimes I feel like on Fridays I don't work as hard. Um, but today I felt like I was pretty on the ball, and I felt like I helped a bunch of people out at work, so I'm pretty happy about it. Um, I recently had a conversation with my parents because I was having baklava, which is a Greek dessert, and I love baklava. It's great if you don't have a stomach problem. The only issue is that I have a stomach problem, and essentially I have something called gastritis or gastroenteritis, and it is a common stomach issue. It kind of gets classified as a sensitive stomach, and your stomach tends to produce acid quicker, or it's just generally acidic, so your stomach is sensitive to whatever you put into it, which can cause stomach aches and bloating. So I was trying for a really long time. I think for 2-3 years, I've had this problem where my stomach has been super sensitive, and it's gotten so bad to the point where one time I woke up at 8 a.m. and I just couldn't walk. It hurt. It almost felt I I would not doubt if I now understood what it's like to have period cramps, because it felt so extreme to a point where I couldn't walk. And I think that if I were to wrap my stomach around with one of those cramp machines, I would actually be able to handle it, because that was probably the most painful cramps that I've ever had in my life. I don't know what I ate, or I don't know what exactly and what I ate that night caused it or triggered it, but I ended up having to go to the ER, and I had to and the ER was slow that day. There were so many patients, and I was in the ER for about 8 to 10 hours before they were able to give me some painkillers through an IV, and I was able to feel better. But before that, it was just, or I don't know what they gave me. They might have even given me like stomach, stomach acid reducers or whatever. But pretty much whatever they gave me helped my stomach and made me okay. But even past that, my stomach was still getting slight cramps for the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I still didn't know why. So I went to a stomach doctor. They're called gastroenterologists. And they did an endoscopy, which is a a procedure where they take a little scope and they look into your stomach and they see what the problem might be, and they didn't find anything, and they ended up classifying me with the general the general garbage classification, which is gastroenteritis, the common issue of having stomach issues. So if you're like me and you have a sensitive stomach, or you have stomach issues, or maybe you even just have common stomach issues, avoid baklava. And the reason why, long story short, there's this thing called a FODMAP, FODMAP, and it's called a FODMAP diet. And essentially, certain foods cause your stomach to create more acid, which makes your stomach more upset. And when you have a sensitive stomach, you want to avoid certain types of food. And in brief moments, at least the best way to explain it is, at least for me, major triggers that cause issues are high amounts of sugar, like just sugar or honey. Honey has a lot of sugar, and pistachios is a type of nut that just kind of is also something that's bad in a FODMAP diet. And so baklava has all of that, and that essentially is the reason why it is the worst thing. I can have it in small intervals, or just like small amounts. I can have like one piece, but one time I had like five, and my stomach was in pain for the entire day. So yeah, it's generally just been a struggle, but I feel like I'm starting to find what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And I'm really happy about that because I actually took a step away from drinking as much, like drinking alcohol. I like to social drink, and I stopped drinking because I didn't know if alcohol was upsetting my stomach. And there are some alcohols that do upset some sensitive stomachs, but primarily it's usually like anything that's carbonated. So beers are like a big one, and seltzers maybe like hard seltzers. So yeah, I feel like I gave a little debriefing for people who have stomach issues. If you don't have stomach issues, then at least you know a little bit more about people who do have it. And if you want to smite them or they piss you off, you can just give them a bunch of baklava and they'll probably kneel over and be in pain for a little bit of time. I don't know if I should be recommending that. Um, but yeah, so I figured out more problems. Yesterday, I decided to write a journal entry about things that I wanted in my future life, and I felt like that went really well. I did it because of this thing called the Lionsgate portal, which just means like it was a day in astrology where you're supposed to write down all your wishes. And even though it's not that day anymore, I recommend you to still write about your dreams and wishes because it helps to kind of solidify and write things down that you really want because it kind of it helps tap into the amount of awareness that you have for certain things, and it'll just make it feel more concrete. You don't have to share it with a bunch of people, but at least then you know what your dreams are, you know what direction you want to go in, you know your goals, and it's better than kind of just having it in the back of your brain and thinking, oh, like I do want to kind of do this, but at the same time I also don't, or I don't know to what degree I want to succeed. So yeah, I feel like I feel like both of those things are good to do. Cool. Now that I got the main things that were in my head out of the way, I'm gonna relax a little bit. I I was I'm so tired recently, like or not recently, just today. I feel like I'm a little stressed out over nothing. I feel like I'm doing too many projects. Tomorrow I am going into the city and I am going to be filming more for the YouTube channel, and it feels like a lot and it feels like a fun adventure, but at the same time it is draining and I'm not really giving myself the time to take a break. And it's kind of how I've been operating. I've always been a person that enjoys the movement. Like I can't really sit down in one place mentally. Physically I can, like for my job obviously I sit at a desk for 8 hours, and and I could lay in bed forever, but mentally my head is doing gymnastics and I'm always thinking about something else. And so I don't know what the best way to re-energize myself is, because naturally I want to keep moving, but if I keep moving, then when do I really stop to relax? And if I don't like stopping, then how do I recharge my battery, right? Like how do I guess like the analogy is I would like to recharge my battery while I'm moving, like almost have like a portable battery that I could bring. Even in that metaphor, you have to go home eventually to recharge your batteries, and I guess that might be sleeping for me. So I guess it's kind of working out. Um, and this is kind of, I guess, my thought process as a person who is always doing a lot of things, always super busy, and likes to be busy. Um, it's just nice that way. I mean, going into a little bit about, I think, why I like to be busy, I feel like it gives me a direction and a purpose to work on things. So that's like the number one thing. I like when I like when I can see myself moving. it's just painful, I think, when, for example, like I have been paying my student loans off for the past 5 years, and I'm finally going to pay it off in March of next year, so it'll be 6 years by then around. And I feel like I would have like absolutely hated things if I just sat here and I just continued working my 9 to 5 and I didn't learn anything new, or I didn't grow, and I just didn't do any thinking until my loans were done. It just kind of feels like time is frozen, and I don't like feeling like time is frozen. And so that's why I filled my time with things that helped me move across the finish line or helped make the journey more enjoyable, right? I feel like a bunch of people have a different perspective. I feel like a lot of people will fill their time with things to just distract themselves with and to kill time. And I guess it's kind of like what I'm doing too, but I feel like the main difference is that um, there are certain actions that don't realize into something that gives you a reward in reality. So for example, if I watch TV shows every single day, then I might learn more about reality TV, or I might learn more about TV productions maybe. But realistically, I'm probably not looking from a lens of like a director or actually educating myself with how a show is being filmed or why they transition a certain way. I'm really just doing it for my own enjoyment. And when I think of it like that, um, the enjoyment is great, but enjoyment ends at one point, and then eventually you didn't really like do anything with your time, right? Like, I'm not saying it's a complete waste of time. It's always good to recharge and to de-stress, and if watching shows is the way you do that, then cool, like that's great. But at some point you kind of have to ask yourself, am I really recharging, or am I just kind of wasting my time or not doing as much as I can I be doing something better at this point in time rather than watching a show? Chances are that there is something that you've been thinking about doing or something that you've been wanting to do and you just haven't gotten around to it. And it's those times every single day, and we'll give ourselves a bunch of excuses as to why we don't do it. Like, oh, I have to cook dinner. Oh, by the time I finish cooking dinner, I'm so tired and I can't think about it. And like, I just want to rest because I have to go to sleep early because I have work tomorrow. It's like, yeah, these are all valid reasons. It's not an excuse, or it's not something that is unjustified, right? Like, you're allowed to spend time however you want to spend your time. But at the same time, there is a whole nother world and a whole other lifestyle that you can have if you just moved yourself a little bit to do things towards what you really want, or to move towards a life that you would enjoy even more. I think that it's hard to see the long-term gain because in the short term you're in a lot of pain and you're pushing yourself. But if you think about it, the complaints are usually like, I don't have enough time, or I need to de-stress, or I want to just relax. But if we pursued the things that help to make our life better, then chances are that it's going to give us more flexibility and more opportunities to de-stress, to have more time, to have more resources and capabilities to do the things that we want. And so just kind of saying all of this stuff to kind of let you like take a step back, let you see a bigger picture here, and to not be bothered by the short-term feelings as much, or to at least justify it that, you know, if you're tired and you're really contemplating, oh, should I work on something, should I not work on something, then you should probably work on it, and not give yourself any do not give yourself any expectations is kind of the key that I figured out. If you want to work on something, consistency just means that you think about it and you put an action towards it. That action can be giving it some serious thought or asking the question, do I want to do this? If you say yes or no, that can be enough for the day. Lots of times when you ask that question, like lots of times it may be a no, but in the off chance that you do say yes to doing more work because you have a little bit more energy, work wasn't as draining, then you do a good job because you're already doing one day of productivity where you would have normally not have done anything if you didn't ask yourself that question, if that makes sense. So try to aim try to just do things, you know? Try to do more things that will help make your life better. The short-term pain of like pushing yourself or feeling uncomfortable, like it's good to get used to that. And I'm speaking from a place where I guess I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of failure in my life. I've been I don't know if that is if it's a good thing to have, to be fortunate to deal with pain and struggle and and all the forms of like every type of like struggling that a normal person can have. But um I would like to think that I'm fortunate for it because it allows me to have a certain amount of resilience to the uncomfortable situations. If I never had an uncomfortable situation, then I'm not sure I would know how to process my emotions or how to figure out solutions in an environment that is just completely, completely intense and full of pressure and has a lot of tension. It's a lot, and I know it's a lot to even work through emotions or to process emotions. And I'm fortunate enough to have gone through so many stressful moments in my life where I have acclimated to the pressure. You may not have acclimated yet, or you may not have had as much experiences with it, with struggling, which is a good thing. Like, I'm happy that you're not struggling. At one point, if you're aiming for anything in life, you're going to have to struggle. I'm sorry. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, if you had a privileged life or not. Eventually, you're going to want to start your own thing. You're going to want to push yourself so that you can do something that you really want to do, and you'll have to deal with that uncomfortability. And so everyone will deal with it. And I think the best way to deal with it, like I said, is to not give yourself any expectation. Do not create a schedule. Do not try to do something once a week, twice a week. Do not set every Saturday for it. Sometimes it can work for people, but lots of times it doesn't. You can't schedule something consistently within your schedule when your life changes so much. You can't plan a Saturday out when so many things happen on a Saturday, and you can't do it on a Monday because everything happens on a Monday or a Tuesday or Wednesday. And sometimes your Wednesdays are free like 80% of the time, but 20% of the time someone's birthday is on a Wednesday. So you just have to learn how to go with the flow. You have to learn how to drop things when you don't get around to it, and you just have to remember a lot of the positive moments rather than the negative ones. Don't think about all the times that you said no or were lazy and didn't do anything. Just focus on the one moment that you have when you're able to do something and think back to it. Like, even for me, I feel like I am not that productive even with my app. I haven't worked on my app in like 1 to 2 weeks, or even 3 weeks. I think I haven't worked on it in 3 weeks. But last week I opened my laptop and I turned the power button on, and I didn't even look at any code. I just like turned it on, I think, even to charge my phone, because I'm weird. I connect the cable to my laptop because it's easier that way to charge my phone. But I haven't worked on my app in so long, but I keep it on the front of my mind. I keep the laptop on my desk, and I try to be a little bit happier with the fact that, like, okay, I haven't done this yet, but I've also been doing other things and I want to get back to it. It's something that I have. When I feel bored and I feel like I don't want to do anything else, I'm going to go back to working on my app. And I constantly think about it. I constantly enjoy thinking about it because there isn't that pressure, and I don't feel a distaste towards it. It doesn't feel like homework or a project or a test that I have to study for, because there's not a negative connotation to it. I can get back to it whenever I want to get back to it. The only caveat I would say to that is, like, like I've read in books that it's good to have deadlines for things, and I don't have a deadline for this app, which is why it has been a lot more lax, in the same way that I don't have a deadline for a lot of my content. But my situation's a little bit more different. I don't feel like I have a rush to do things anymore, for a lot of different things. And so I'm taking my time and trying to figure out what naturally fits into my schedule, what feels the most healthy. And so I'm doing a little bit of like a holistic study. I'm trying to see what really fits into my life and what I've been kind of forcing myself to do. And at one point I was forcing myself to do all of these things, and it didn't really feel natural. It just kind of felt like I was like kind of being a workaholic, to be honest. And I want to try and do things in a way where it's balanced. I feel like you should also do things that are more in a balance. I think it's only something that I can really say I'm doing well because I have gone through the phases of life where I was a procrastinator. If you're currently a procrastinator, don't take the same route as me. Don't say like, oh, okay, like Joemer is trying to figure things out naturally, so I will too. Because naturally you will procrastinate. And I'm telling you that as an ex-procrastinator, an ex-professional D1 procrastinator. It is like when your natural tendencies or your current habits aren't towards being productive, then you'll just naturally not do things. And so you have to take a little bit of a different route, and that's why I recommended like asking yourself a question to do something towards what you want, because at least it starts to add in the filter to be productive, to give awareness to what you're doing, and if you even want to be productive at a time, like you ask yourself, rather than relying on your default, which is to just say no and to be lazy or to not do anything. And my default right now is to be productive, so I'll always do something productive. I'll always like sit down at my desk and I'll start doing something, and there will be a reason and an agenda behind why I'm doing it. It'll always be to learn something or to try to set myself up for the future. And right now I think I'm just doing things in order to make sure that my schedule just makes sense. Like figuring out when my filming days are, figuring out when I'm going to record these podcast episodes, because my knee is feeling better and I'll be going back to volleyball. It's been a lot easier to film and to do all these things because I've been able to relax. I've been able to have the extra time, and it does feel nice, but I also love volleyball. So yeah, I feel like when life is jam packed, it generally just takes a little bit longer to do things. Um, so I guess if you are procrastinating and you're currently trying to not procrastinate, ask yourself a question of if you want to be productive so that you can at least start to build awareness towards things, and don't take on too much would be my other thing. I think when you're already a procrastinator, um, it's just not good to have too many things. You're already struggling to do the one thing. For me, it was studying and focusing on schoolwork. And so all I had was doing schoolwork and then whatever I did to procrastinate. So at the time, it was playing video games. So that was my life. My life was video games and either doing like studying or doing homework, right? And I would ping pong between the two things, and I was already struggling to find a balance between it. And um, I don't recommend doing more. It might feel a little more productive for you, but honestly, you should try to get through, like, the way I would explain it is the way to strike the balance between doing work and uh and having fun is like depends on how much you hate doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing. So for example, I really did not enjoy studying, and so that's why my time was like 50% studying and 50% playing video games, because I needed something to offset the amount of stressful situations that I had, and I just needed a lot of time to just forget what I like, to forget and detach myself from the stressful environment. And I feel like eventually eventually life will get better. Like telling you that like as a 27-year-old, and I did things pretty quickly. But even if I didn't, if I stayed on my normal route, and I didn't push myself, like a lot of things get better after school. And you get a lot more choices and a lot more freedom across the board. And when you get that choice and freedom to do whatever you want, um, you are allowed to fill your time with things that are more positive and more productive and more enjoyable. You don't have to sit in class for 3 hours that you like for a class that you don't like, and you don't have to do anything that like no one's going to tell you what to do for the most part. Like at that point you're an adult. And so um when you start to fill your time with things that are more enjoyable, then you'll feel less of a pressure to, or not less of a pressure, but you'll feel less inclined to want to rely on the reasons why you procrastinate. So for example, like why would I play video games if I can go and play volleyball, or why would I procrastinate if I know I can have more fun filming and things like that. And so eventually the things that cause procrastination are actually like on the lower side of enjoyment from like an isolated perspective. So like by yourself, a lot of the things that we do procrastinating lose a lot of its enjoyment when you're doing it by yourself. So for me, video games ended up losing a lot of its enjoyment when I ended up playing games that I was doing by myself, and when I wasn't playing with my friends as much. That social aspect, that dynamic in like enjoyment and laughter that comes from playing with people, that stuff goes away too, and you learn to like fill that time and um fill that social value with other things. So for me, it was like volleyball or going out or meeting people and um reconnecting and talking with my friends and family and all that stuff. So there's a lot of different things that life offers. It's okay if you're not at the point right now where you can say that you enjoy doing things in life more than just staying in your room and being to yourself. Like I was there, and it was totally okay that I did that for like 21, 22 years. Like I like doing that. And even now I still kind of stay in my room a lot more because, or like a little bit more, because it's always going to be a part of me. I think that everyone's going to want to like stay in their room at one point and just de-stress and not have to deal with anyone or anything, and just kind of be to themselves and do whatever they want to do. So yeah, I feel like life will get better. Do things that will just Life will get better. Do things that will bring you enjoyment, and eventually like the wrinkles will iron out, and life will feel a lot more enjoyable. And if you do kind of like if you kind of do like a 2-for-1 special, and you do things that you enjoy, and they're also things that are productive, then you end up being productive and enjoying things. So you get to have both, which is not really the school system, right? The school system is like you either don't enjoy it and you get rewards, or you enjoy something and you don't get a reward. That's kind of like what I had with the school system and playing video games. Like one of them one of them had dopamine, like video games had dopamine, and school had like rewards in reality, like accolades, achievements, and reputation and respect and all this stuff. And when you grow up, or when you get out of the school system, you realize that life often mixes the two things. Like being productive is often tied with positive things, and it makes you more addicted to wanting to be productive because there's so many positive things that come out of it. And um I think it goes across the board. It's like video games were never even that bad. Like a lot of people end up making, well, not a lot of people, but people who work really hard end up making a career in video gaming nowadays, and or being a streamer or an entertainer. And so everything that we do has value, it can be seen as productive. It isn't productive in the context, right? Like playing video games doesn't help in the context of studying for school. But by itself, like video games are a good way to learn a lot of different lessons, or to have resilience, tolerance, to learn about communication with teammates, to do a lot of different things, to work on hand-eye coordination. There's a lot of different things. And it's just about doing what you enjoy and then realizing the value in it. And when you realize the value, it makes it feel like you're not procrastinating. It makes you feel like you're actually moving towards something. And I feel like whatever you end up doing, as long as you can see the value in it, then that'll just help to set you up for just growing in general, I think. Even if, like, for me, like, I played video games for years, and I am obviously not a professional gamer, and so, or I don't go on Twitch and do it for entertainment and make a lot of money. And so the monetary value behind it isn't there, or at least it's not there yet. If I end up trying to do that, I don't think I will, but it's not there, and the value ended up kind of being more internal, and it ended up just kind of giving me a good mindset for kind of seeing life as a game, for seeing rewards as like a leveling system, and kind of getting used to like role-playing games or RPG games where, you know, you kind of have to like level up your character, and I feel like I'm leveling myself up a lot of times, or I feel like I'm playing a game a lot of times. So it gave me a good mentality, and I feel like the value wasn't lost in my case, and I ended up translating the things that I did, the values that I learned, into the things that I do now, and how I'm productive, and how I have a certain work ethic now. So value is never lost. Nothing that you do is a waste of time. And it's just about kind of, I guess, like, the whole point of this chat was to kind of, I mean, to throw a lot at you, to be honest. I feel like I threw a lot, and I'm sorry if I overwhelmed you. But I think the whole point was to say that nothing you do is a waste of time. If you are procrastinating, it's okay. And it's only okay if you see the value in procrastinating. At that point, it's not really procrastinating. Like, that's kind of when procrastination is converted to productivity. When you realize that the time that you wasted isn't a waste of time. And procrastination and productivity are actually one and the same thing. It's just that the view is different in life, or our perspective is different. So someone may see playing video games and being on your phone all the time as being unproductive and lazy, and at the same time you could be at your phone starting a social media account, and you can be playing video games because you're trying out for an esport team, or you're trying out to be a professional gamer, and you're actually really, really good. So it's all about perspective, and it's all about seeing the value in everything that you do, being optimistic and positive about the things that you do, and to not listen to anybody. Don't listen to jack shit. If people say that you're wasting your time, and you feel like you are, and you feel defensive, then act however you want to act. But afterwards, when you're alone in a room, ask yourself, why do I feel like I am wasting my time? Why did I feel so defensive when somebody told me that I was wasting my time? Do I feel defensive because I feel like I'm not wasting my time? And if I'm not wasting my time, then why don't I think I'm wasting my time? What is the value that I'm getting out of this? Because it might just be that people don't understand the value you're getting, or don't understand what you're learning. And they may not ever understand, but people often feel like people will never understand them because they never actually took the chance to communicate with them and to let people know their perspectives. Lots of times there are parents, or there are role models that won't listen to people under them, but they won't listen to them because oftentimes like children or people younger try to speak to people as equals, and people that are older will feel like you are not equals. So there's already like two people that are on different boats, and maybe communication might be something that we'll chat about a different time. But um, essentially, you just have, like, in terms of communication, like briefly speaking, whenever you're talking to anyone, you kind of have to say things in a way that the other person will understand, not how you want to portray your information, because it's about portraying your information, but it's portraying the statements and the thoughts that you want to say in a way that somebody will understand. Like, that second part is very important, because if you're just portraying your own thoughts and no one really understands what you're saying, then you're kind of just speaking like a goldfish. Like, nobody is really like going to understand what you're trying to say in the grand scheme of things. So you kind of have to just say things in a way where you get it across. A good example that I have um, is compassion. I would say like that's my biggest thing. I will there's this thing in corporate culture called a compliment sandwich. It's where you put the feedback or criticism that you want in between two compliments, and you don't sound like you just don't sound like you're glazing them, essentially. So you don't go like, oh wow, you're so amazing, you're so amazing. Oh, by the way, this really crappy thing that you did. Oh, but you're so amazing, you're so amazing. Like, you just have to make it authentic. Lots of times I don't even do a compliment sandwich. I do like half a piece of toast and then the sandwich content. So I'll start off with some compassion and say something like, oh, like, I know that you usually care a lot about me, and you care a lot about, about my feelings, but I am feeling like this. And so I guess like there's a little bit compassion to understand, like, hey, I know where you're coming from. And then to tell them that, like, hey, you're not the problem. I am feeling a certain way, and it's not necessarily because of what you said. It is just my emotions. And when you make it that way, when whenever you make things in a way where it's pointed towards you, nobody can really disagree with how you're feeling, because what's anyone gonna say? Like, people are gonna be like, oh no, like, you're not allowed to feel that way. Like, people do that, but they're narcissists or gaslighters or manipulators, and those are people you don't want to deal with anyway. But for the reasonable people, the people that are close in your life and not that toxic, and they actually do care, these people will often just listen to you and will actually give you the time of day, and will be open to listening to you, because they'll feel like they don't have to be defensive, and they'll subconsciously put their walls down because they're like, oh, somebody's not attacking me or my character or the things that I said. And they'll often switch that part of their brain off, because they're like, oh, like, this person's telling me how they're feeling, like, I should actually turn on the part of my brain where I care and I think about them, and I just listen to them, because it's not about me, it's about them. And when you take the focus off of themselves, then people will generally care more about what you have to say, and as long as you don't really direct it towards them, and you say things in a way where it's just more about how you feel. So yeah, that is generally I don't even know what I was talking about, but that is just a way to communicate with people, tell people about why you're doing things and why you're not procrastinating, how to deal with things when you're being defensive, or how to not be as defensive, and to communicate with people in a way where you don't have as much conflict. If you feel like you're arguing with someone a lot, or you feel like like you never are on the same page with somebody, and you feel like, oh, they're never going to understand what I'm going through, lots of times it's probably just your language, or it's how you're saying things. And it's not your thoughts, it's not what you're doing, it's just that you're not saying it in a way that makes people feel less defensive, or make people feel like they're supposed to be caring about what you're thinking. And people will be like, I have dealt with it all. People will feel defensive, even if you don't direct it at them. And it's important to physically and directly say, like, this is not about you. This is not about what you said. But these are just some things that have been bothering me. And I wish you guys luck in your conversations. I wish you luck to try and do things that help you feel productive and help you grow. And I know you'll get there. Take it one step at a time. I am with you 100% of the way, mostly because I am also in that place in life where I am still trying to figure it out, still trying to communicate with people the right way, still trying to do a lot of the things that I'm preaching here. So I'm not a hypocrite, and I'm not a master. I'm just somebody who's also going through the same things and kind of sharing my thought processes. And all these thoughts may go out the window in a month or two when I learn something new. But hopefully, from your perspective, it's a lot of things that you haven't heard before that are helping shift your perspective and have been helping you grow. So thank you guys for coming. I'm going to end the podcast episode here because honestly, I'm a little bit tired, but I also don't have any other thoughts. And just to say hi to the people in the stream, Kelvin, thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. But as always, guys, if you have questions, then feel free to leave any comments. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming for the Yap session. Hopefully you're not asleep, and hopefully you learned something new. I will see you guys in the next one.